In the final, brutal days of World War II, a mystery was born in the skies over Belgium, a mystery that would lie buried for over 60 years, waiting for the world to find it. The date was December 14, 1944. 3 experienced American fighter pilots, Lieutenant Warren Hale, Captain Samuel Dorsey, and Flight Officer Alan Pierce, climbed into their top-of-the-line P-51 Mustang fighters. Their mission was simple, a routine reconnaissance sweep over the Ardennes forest. The weather was perfect. The pilots were calm. Nothing suggested this would be their final flight. At exactly 2:20 p.m., a confident voice came over the radio. It was Lieutenant Hale. Entering Sector Charlie. Forming pattern, all good. And then nothing. The transmission didn't crackle or fade into static. It just stopped. On the ground, operators watched in confusion as 3 bright dots on their radar screens vanished at the same instant. No smoke trails were seen. No distress calls were heard. It was as if the sky had simply swallowed them whole. Search and rescue missions were immediately launched. Teams scoured the war-torn Belgian countryside for weeks. They found the wreckage of other planes, the debris of battle, even makeshift graves for fallen soldiers. But of Hale, Dorsey, and Pierce, there was no trace. Not a single fragment of metal. Not a drop of oil. Not a shred of a uniform. It was as if they had never been there at all. The military, with a war to win, couldn't dwell on the unexplained. The files were quietly closed, and the 3 pilots were officially listed as missing in action, their fate a cold, unanswered question. But out in the snow-covered fields and forests of the Ardennes, strange stories began to spread among the locals. Farmers spoke of silent, hovering lights drifting between the trees, moving against the wind as if searching for something. One man swore he heard the low hum of engines coming from beneath the earth itself. Soldiers started to joke about a place they called the Ardennes Triangle, a triangular patch of sky between 3 forested ridges that seemed to eat planes for breakfast. The joke faded, but the name stuck in the minds of those who worked the radar stations. They saw the ghostly triangle appear on their screens whenever electronic anomalies occurred, but officially, it was just a coincidence. The war ended, and the story of the 3 missing pilots became little more than a ghost story told by veterans, a haunting piece of military folklore with no evidence and no answers. The families waited, hoped, and eventually passed away, never knowing what happened to their sons. For 65 years, the secret remained buried. Then, in 2009, everything changed. A Belgian energy company began drilling test holes for a new wind farm in a quiet patch of farmland, the very same area where the planes had vanished. Their powerful drill bored into the earth, and on the 3rd attempt, it struck something hard. Not rock, but metal. It was deep, more than 5 meters underground. The workers expected to find old pipes or maybe some forgotten farm equipment. But what they pulled up was something else entirely. It was aluminum layered, riveted, and shaped in a way that was instantly recognizable. Archaeologists and military investigators were called to the scene. As they carefully excavated the site, a stunned silence fell over the team. Buried deep beneath the soil lay the almost perfectly preserved fuselage of a P-51 Mustang fighter. It looked less like a crash and more like an artifact that had been deliberately placed in an underground vault. And then, a few meters away, they found another one. And then a third. The 3 missing American fighters from 1944 had finally been found. But the discovery raised more questions than it answered. The way the planes were arranged was chillingly precise. They formed a perfect equilateral triangle on the ground, the exact same pattern the pilots had reported entering just moments before they disappeared. This was no crash. The aircraft showed no signs of impact damage. The fuselages weren't crumpled, the wings weren't torn off. They looked like they had been gently lowered into the earth. The real shock came when they examined the cockpits. They were completely empty. There were no human remains. No bones, no uniforms, no flight gear. The canopies weren't shattered, and the ejection systems hadn't been fired. It was as if the pilots had simply opened the cockpits, stepped out of their planes 5 meters underground, and walked away into the solid earth. Aviation engineers were brought in to inspect the aircraft, and the mystery only deepened. The landing gear on all 3 planes was still retracted, meaning they hadn't attempted to land. Their fuel tank still contained fuel. Their oxygen systems showed no signs of failure. According to the instruments, the planes were in perfect working order when they were buried. One device, a primitive precursor to a modern black box, held the most baffling clue of all. It recorded the last pressure readings from inside the cockpits. The data showed that the cabin pressure hadn't dropped gradually, as it would in a normal descent or even a crash. It had dropped instantly. The change was so instantaneous, so total, it was as if the planes had been pulled into a vacuum, a pocket of nothingness so fast that the pilots wouldn't have even had time to gasp, let alone send a distress call. As news of the discovery spread, older residents of the area came forward with long-forgotten memories. One elderly farmer recalled being a young boy in 1957, helping his father work in the very same fields. He remembered a strange, low metallic humming that seemed to rise up from the ground beneath his feet. His father, a veteran of the war, pressed his ear to the soil and whispered, "Engines. American ones." When the boy asked how he knew, his father simply said, "I fought in the war. I know the sound." Later, the father sketched a map of the field, marking the 3 points where he heard the noise. The shape he drew was a perfect triangle in the exact spot where the planes were unearthed 52 years later. Scientists and investigators were stumped. Theories flew, each more unsettling than the last. Could the ground have collapsed, swallowing the planes into a hidden sinkhole or cavern? Geologists said no. The dense layer of clay packed around the aircraft would have taken thousands of years to form naturally, not the 65 years since the war. Could it have been a top-secret military experiment to hide aircraft in underground bunkers? Researchers scoured every declassified document and found nothing. No records, no blueprints, and no surviving personnel ever spoke of such a project. A few physicists cautiously whispered about theoretical atmospheric phenomena localized, high-energy events that could, in theory, exert immense pressure and force objects downward. But no known natural event could explain the precision, the silence, and the complete and total disappearance of the pilots themselves. The only thing every investigator could agree on was as simple as it was terrifying. Whatever happened to those planes and their pilots happened in an instant. The force that moved 3 multi-ton fighter planes 5 meters underground did so without leaving a scratch on them, and it took the pilots with it. Today, the Belgian wind farm stands over that quiet field. The giant turbines spin silently in the wind, generating clean energy for the modern world. But the workers there sometimes report strange things. A faint vibration in the steel foundations of the turbines. A low, mechanical hum that seems to come from nowhere and fades just as quickly. Some say it sounds like distant engines, rising up from the soil for a moment before sinking back into silence. And every year, on the anniversary of that final flight, radar operators in the region sometimes notice a strange, fleeting anomaly on their screens. For just a few seconds, 3 silent blips appear moving together. They form a perfect triangular pattern, and then, just as they did in 1944, they vanish without a trace. The story of Lieutenant Hale, Captain Dorsey, and Flight Officer Pierce remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the Second World War, a silent testament to the fact that some secrets refuse to stay buried forever. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy diving into history's deepest mysteries, make sure to follow for more.